They called him the Ice King of Seoul. Kang Deving didn't negotiate. He didn't forgive. He ruled the city's underworld with a fist wrapped in barbed wire, and his estate was a fortress where mercy came to die. Rule number 1. No outsiders. Ever. Rule number 2. Break rule number 1, and you won't live to regret it. But at 2:47 a.m. on a rain-drenched Wednesday, Naledi had no choice left in the world. Her phone had shattered the silence of the servants' quarters with a call that turned her blood to ice. The care facility was flooding. Her grandmother, Thandile, needed immediate evacuation. No beds available elsewhere. Come now, or they'd send her to a county shelter where neglect wore a name tag and called itself care. Naledi's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, her grandmother dozing fitfully in the passenger seat. The old woman's silver locks were wrapped in a faded purple scarf, her weathered hands clutching a leather Bible that had crossed an ocean 4 decades ago. "Where we going, baby?" Thandile's voice was soft, confused, lost in the fog that dementia had wrapped around her mind. "Somewhere safe, go-go," Naledi whispered, the lie bitter on her tongue. Safe. The word was a cruel joke. She was driving straight into the devil's kitchen, and she knew exactly what happened to people who broke Kang Deving's rules. 3 months ago, a courier had accidentally used the main entrance instead of the service door. He'd left on a stretcher, 3 ribs broken, 1 eye swollen shut. The message was clear: this house had boundaries written in bone and blood. Naledi parked in the shadowed alley behind the estate, her whole body shaking so hard she could barely unbuckle her seatbelt. She helped Thandile from the car, supporting her grandmother's fragile frame as they crept through the service entrance. The kitchen was blessedly empty. Staff wouldn't arrive for another 3 hours. Just tonight, Naledi breathed into the darkness. Just until dawn. Then I'll figure something out. She settled Thandile in her tiny staff bedroom, covered her with the only spare blanket she owned, and watched her grandmother's chest rise and fall. 73 years of life, of struggle, of loving a granddaughter who'd just signed both their death warrants. Naledi had 4 guest suites to prepare before sunrise. Mr. Kang's standing orders. She kissed her grandmother's forehead and slipped back into the hallway, her heart hammering against her ribs like a prisoner begging for escape. She worked with desperate speed, her mind spinning through impossible scenarios. Maybe she could find another facility by morning. Maybe she could. A sound froze her blood solid. Footsteps. Slow, unsteady, wandering, coming from the direction of her room. No, 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 please God, no. Naledi dropped her cleaning supplies and ran. Her bare feet slapped against marble as she rounded the corner, and her worst nightmare bloomed before her eyes like a poisonous flower. Thandile was wandering down the main corridor, humming an old Corsa hymn, her fingers trailing along silk wallpaper that cost more than Naledi made in a year. Heading directly toward Kang Deving's private office. The front doors exploded inward. Kang Deving entered like a storm given human form. His black suit was shredded at the shoulder, his white shirt painted with arterial spray. Intricate dragon tattoos coiled up his neck, disappearing beneath his collar, the ink stark against his skin even through the blood. His knuckles were split and bleeding, traditional Korean geometric patterns tattooed across both hands visible beneath the crimson. His jaw set at an angle that could cut diamond. Behind him, 8 bodyguards filed in, weapons barely concealed, their faces carved from granite. Whatever had happened tonight had been apocalyptic. "Burn everything," Deving barked, shrugging off his ruined jacket. The movement revealed more ink, a full sleeve of traditional Korean imagery crawling down his left arm. Tigers, phoenixes, and clouds rendered in breathtaking detail. "Get Dr. Yoon. And someone tell me why." He stopped mid-sentence. The main hall was supposed to be empty. It was always empty when he returned from the kind of business that left blood under his fingernails and screams echoing in his memory. But someone was sitting in his leather armchair. An elderly black woman with silver locks framing a face mapped with decades of wisdom and sorrow. She wore a faded floral nightgown and hummed softly, completely unaware that 8 guns had just trained on her fragile chest. Deving's tattooed hand moved to his waistband, fingers wrapping around cold steel. The ink across his knuckles, symbols meaning loyalty and family, flexed as his grip tightened. "Who the hell?" Red laser sights painted Thandai's chest like targeting roses. Safeties clicked off with sounds like breaking bones. Go, go. Nalidi's scream tore through the tension like shattered glass. She came sprinting from the hallway, tears already streaming, her body moving on pure instinct and terror. She threw herself over her grandmother, arms spread wide, a human shield made of love and desperation. Please. Nalidi sobbed, looking directly into Kang Deving's eyes, those eyes that had watched men beg and never blinked. Please don't hurt her. She has dementia. She doesn't understand. The facility flooded. I had nowhere else. Please, Mr. Kang, I'll leave right now. We'll disappear. Just please don't hurt my grandmother. The hall fell into a silence so complete that Nalidi could hear her own heartbeat counting down her final moments. Deving stood frozen, his weapon half drawn, his tattooed hand trembling, his eyes locked on Thandai's face. The old woman patted Nalidi's head gently, confused by the fuss. Hush now, baby. No need for tears. The bodyguards waited. One word from Kang Deving, and this problem would be erased. Clean. Permanent. Forgotten by sunrise. Nalidi squeezed her eyes shut, pulled her grandmother closer, and whispered prayers in Corsa that felt too small for this moment of reckoning. She waited for the gunshot. Instead, she heard the impossible. The soft sound of expensive fabric hitting marble. Nalidi's eyes flew open. Kang Deving was on his knees. His weapon lay discarded 3 feet away. His tattooed hands were shaking, those hands that had broken bones and ended lives, now trembling like leaves. The dragon on his neck seemed to writhe as his throat worked. And for the first time in his brutal life, tears were streaming down the Ice King's face. Halmione, he whispered, his voice shattering like fine crystal. You're alive. What secret could possibly connect Seoul's most ruthless crime lord to a humble grandmother from another continent? How did their paths cross? Drop your theories in the comments. If this story has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe. We're just getting started, and the truth is more explosive than you can imagine. The bodyguards stood frozen, their training completely useless for this moment. They'd seen Kang Deving execute traitors without hesitation. They'd watched him negotiate with Yakuza bosses while bodies cooled in the next room. But they had never, not once, seen him cry. Deving raised one trembling hand, the tattooed characters for strength and honor visible across his knuckles. A gesture so small it barely qualified as movement, yet absolute in its authority. The red laser dots vanished. Weapons lowered. 8 dangerous men stepped back, confusion radiating from them like heat. Nalidi remained frozen over her grandmother, her mind unable to process reality. This couldn't be happening. The Ice King didn't kneel. He didn't weep. He didn't. Deving. Thandai's voice cut through the silence, soft and wondering. The sound of his name from her lips broke something fundamental in him. He stared at her with desperate intensity, as if trying to memorize every line of her face, every silversy, every detail he believed was lost forever. The phoenix tattooed on his forearm seemed to catch the light, wings spread in eternal flight. Thandai squinted, her clouded eyes studying him. Then something shifted, a flicker of recognition piercing through dementia's fog. She tapped her wooden cane against the marble floor twice. The gesture was both gentle and reprimanding, carrying the weight of 1,000 uneaten meals and worried nights. Look at you, she said, her voice laden with disappointed affection. She reached out, her fingers tracing the edge of the dragon tattoo on his neck. Still not taking care of yourself. You're too thin. And you've marked yourself up like this. The words detonated in Deving's chest. His cold expression, the mask he'd worn for 20 years, the face that had ordered deaths without flinching, shattered completely. His shoulders shook. He bent forward in a full 90-degree bow, the kind reserved for royalty, for ancestors, for people who owned your soul. But even that wasn't enough. His knees hit marble with a crack that made the bodyguards wince. He crawled forward, his $1,000 suit dragging across polished stone until he reached Thandai's feet. He pressed his face to her weathered hands, his entire body racked with sobs that seemed torn from somewhere ancient and buried. The elaborate sleeve of tattoos on his arm, tigers and clouds and sacred mountains, seemed to blur through Nalidi's tears. Halmione, he choked out. I searched for 15 years. They told me you were dead. They told me everyone was gone. I looked everywhere. Sure, Thandile murmured, her fingers instinctively moving to stroke his hair the way she must have done in another lifetime, carefully avoiding the fresh blood still in it. I'm here now, child. I'm here. Nalidi's hands covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face as she watched the most powerful man in Seoul weep like a lost boy. The bodyguards stood like statues, their faces carefully blank, desperately trying to unsee what they'd witnessed. Because the man sobbing at an old woman's feet wasn't the Ice King of Seoul. He was just a boy who'd lost everything. And somehow, impossibly, he'd just found a piece of it back. Thandile looked at Nalidi with those cloudy, confused eyes. Do you know this young man, baby? But Kang Deving only held tighter, as if releasing her would make her vanish like smoke. Los Angeles, 1997. The alley behind the corner store reeked of rot and broken promises. A small Korean boy, maybe 9 years old, was curled against graffitied brick, arms wrapped around his head as 4 older kids kicked him repeatedly. Go back where you came from. Nobody wants you here, immigrant trash. Little Deving didn't cry out. He'd learned that crying made it worse. His uncle had brought him to America 8 months ago with promises of a better life, then vanished into the city's criminal underworld, leaving the boy to survive alone. He'd been starving. He'd stolen a candy bar. That was his crime. Another kick connected with his ribs. Pain exploded like fireworks behind his eyes. Then, crack. A wooden cane struck the pavement so hard the sound echoed off the walls. The beating stopped instantly. You get away from that child right now, or so help me God, I will find every one of your mothers and you won't sit down for a month. The boys scattered like rats in sudden light. Deving looked up through swollen eyes to see a black woman in her early 50s standing over him, her cane raised like a weapon, her expression fierce enough to stop a charging bull. Behind her, a little girl around 6 years old peeked out nervously, her granddaughter. Thandile's expression softened the moment the bullies fled. She knelt down, her knees protesting, and gently touched the boy's bruised face. Oh, sweet child, she whispered. Look what they did to you. She took him home that day. Her apartment was tiny, 2 rooms above a laundromat, but it smelled like heaven. Like stew and fresh bread and safety. She fed him, bandaged his wounds, let him sleep on her couch while little Nalidi brought him her favorite stuffed elephant to hold. You stay as long as you need, Thandile said, stroking his hair as he finally cried. You're safe now. For 4 months, she was his mother. The only mother he'd ever known. She taught him to read English, made him do his homework, insisted he say grace before meals, told him he was worthy of love even when the world screamed otherwise. Then his uncle returned, scarred, violent, heavily tattooed, and dragging Deving back to Seoul to join the family empire. Deving had screamed for her, reaching back toward that tiny apartment as his uncle's car pulled away. I'll find you again, Halmione, he'd sobbed. I promise. But Seoul had swallowed him whole. The family business was organized crime. By 16, he was running protection rackets and getting his first tattoos, marks of belonging to a world that valued violence over virtue. By 22, he was eliminating rivals, his body becoming a canvas of ink that told stories of blood and survival. By 32, he was the Ice King of Seoul, a man who'd forgotten what warmth felt like, his skin covered in elaborate traditional artwork that marked him as both artist and weapon. And Thandile, his only light in a world of darkness, had vanished into the fog of time. Until tonight. The transformation happened so fast it felt like reality splitting. Deving rose from his knees, wiping his face roughly with his tattooed hand, and turned to his head of security, a brutal enforcer named Choi who'd been with him for 9 years. You aimed a weapon at her, Deving said quietly. The dragon on his neck seemed to pulse with barely contained fury. Choi's face went pale. Boss, I didn't know. You're done. Pack your things. If I see you in Seoul by sunrise, they'll find pieces of you in the Han River. Choi opened his mouth to protest, saw the look in Deving's eyes, and wisely chose survival. He was gone within 2 minutes. Deving addressed the remaining bodyguards, rolling up his sleeves to reveal the full extent of his ink. Traditional Korean imagery mixed with modern designs, every piece telling a story of survival, loss, and power. His voice carried absolute authority. This woman is Halmione. She is untouchable. She is sacred. Anyone who shows her even a hint of disrespect answers to me personally. Understood? Yes, boss. He knelt beside Thandai again, his voice softening impossibly. Halmione, you'll take the master suite. Best bed, best view. I will not, Thandai said firmly, tapping her cane. I'm perfectly fine where I am. You're taking the master suite, Defies repeated, but there was no command in it. Only pleading. Thandai studied him for a long moment, her eyes lingering on the tattoos covering his skin. Then she sighed. Fine. But only because my back hurts. Defies' eyes found Naledi, still frozen in shock. You, he said, his expression shifting to something almost apologetic. You're her granddaughter. Naledi nodded, unable to speak. Then your family. My sister. He said it like an oath, pressing his tattooed fist to his chest. You're done cleaning. Done hiding. You both live here now. Properly. By dawn, the estate had been transformed. The master suite became a palace, new bedding, fresh flowers, medical equipment installed beside the bed. Naledi was moved to the guest wing, her new room 3 times the size of her old apartment. The staff whispered in terror and wonder. The Ice King had gone soft. The world was ending. But the real shock came 4 days later during breakfast. Defies was on the phone, barking orders, his tattooed fingers drumming against the table. I don't care if he's a prosecutor's son. Break his. Thwack. Thandai's cane connected with his tattooed shoulder. Language, she snapped. We are eating. The entire dining room fell silent. The bodyguards stopped breathing. Kang Defies, who'd once killed a man for interrupting his lunch, rubbed his shoulder sheepishly, the ink rippling under his fingers. Sorry, Halmione. And sit up straight. You look like a street thug. Yes, Halmione. Naledi bit her lip to stop from laughing. That evening, Thandai made Defies eat vegetables, actually sat there and watched until he finished every piece of broccoli on his plate. The Ice King of Seoul, terror of the underworld, his arms covered in fearsome tattoos, pouting at steamed broccoli while his grandmother nodded in approval. Good boy, Thandai said, patting his cheek. And Kang Defies smiled. Actually smiled. From terrified Maid to the boss's sister, Naledi's life flipped overnight because of her grandmother's kindness years ago. But peace never lasts in the underworld. Would you trust Defies' transformation, or keep one eye on the exit? Share your thoughts below. This story is about to take a dark turn. Don't miss Act 3. Like and subscribe now. For 2 weeks, the estate felt almost normal. If normal included a crime lord being scolded for slouching, and a grandmother who'd somehow tamed Seoul's most dangerous man with nothing but a wooden cane and disappointed looks. But the city had eyes. And the city talked. In a smoke-filled room across town, Park Jin-chul, known in the underworld as the Viper, set down his glass of soju and smiled. The smile never touched his eyes. So, he said slowly, studying surveillance photos spread across the table. The Ice King has a weakness after all. The photos showed Kang Defies helping an elderly woman into a car, his tattooed hands gentle on her arm, carrying groceries, walking beside her in the garden with an expression that looked almost soft. Who is she? His lieutenant asked. Does it matter? The Viper leaned back, his mind already calculating angles. Kang Defies hasn't let anyone close in 2 decades. Which means this woman, he tapped the photo with one manicured finger, is leverage. Naledi noticed them on a Thursday. The black sedan parked across the street. Same spot, 4 days running. Different drivers, but the same predatory energy. The same hungry eyes tracking everyone who entered or left. Her hands shook as she poured Defies' evening tea. He noticed immediately. He noticed everything now, especially concerning his family. What's wrong? There's been a car. Watching the house. Defies' expression darkened. He was at the window in 3 strides, phone already at his ear. The tattoos on his neck seemed to darken with his mood. Run the plates. Black sedan, northeast corner. Now. The answer came back within minutes. Shell Company. Registered to the Vipers organization. Deeving's jaw tightened, the muscles flexing beneath the dragon ink. He'd been expecting this. Hoping it wouldn't come, but expecting it all the same. Happiness always had a price in his world. That night, he gathered Thandile and Naledi in his study. He'd removed his jacket, his tattooed arms fully visible, a walking canvas of his violent history. I'm sending you both to a safe house tonight. Jeju Island. My men will. No, Thandile said simply. Deeving blinked. Halmione, you don't understand. These people are dangerous. No, she repeated, more firmly. She reached across and took his hand, the same tattooed hand that had broken bones and ended lives. I lost you once, Deeving. I wandered this world for 30 years thinking you were gone. I'm not leaving you again. They'll use you to get to me. Then you'd better make sure they don't succeed. Thandile's eyes, clouded with age but sharp with determination, held his. I didn't raise a boy who runs from fights. And I'm certainly not running from mine. Naledi swallowed hard. I'm staying too. Deeving looked between them, these two women who'd somehow become his entire world in 2 weeks, and felt something crack in his chest. You're both insane, he muttered. We learned from the best, Naledi said quietly. Outside in the darkness, the black sedan's engine started. The Viper was making his move. The attack came during dinner. Thandile was telling a story about young Deeving trying to sneak cookies when the first window exploded inward in a storm of glass and gunfire. Deeving moved on pure instinct. He flipped the table, grabbed both women, dragged them to the floor as bullets chewed through the chandelier above. Crystal rained down like deadly snow. Breach. North and east. One of his guards screamed before his voice was cut short by gunfire. Deeving's mind raced. 12 attackers. Maybe 15. His team was good, but they'd been caught during shift change. Outnumbered. Outgunned. Move, he shouted, pulling them toward the hallway. More gunfire erupted from the kitchen. The Viper had planned this perfectly. Simultaneous entry, maximum chaos. They ran through smoke and darkness, Deeving's body positioned as a shield between his family and the gunman pouring through his home. He returned fire without looking, muscle memory guiding his aim, his tattooed hands steady on the weapon. The panic room was behind a false wall in his study. He slammed his palm against the biometric scanner. The wall slid open. Get inside. Now. He shoved them through the opening. Thandile stumbled, caught herself. Naledi turned back, terror in her eyes. What about you? I'm ending this. Deeving's expression was cold steel. The Ice King had returned. The tattoos covering his skin seemed to come alive in the emergency lighting. Dragons breathing fire, tigers bearing fangs. Lock it from inside. Don't open for anyone but me. Deeving, Thandile reached for him. I love you, Halmione. His voice cracked. I'll come back. I promise. He slammed the door shut. The lock engaged with a heavy thunk. Then Kang Deeving turned to face the army pouring into his home, and he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. The Viper entered through the main doors 20 minutes later, stepping over bodies like they were trash. His men had secured the first floor. Deeving's guards were dead or captured. Where is he? The Viper demanded. Barricaded upstairs, boss. Won't last long. The Viper smiled. Bring me the old woman. Let's see if the Ice King melts when we put a gun to. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Then the screaming started. Deeving moved through his own home like a ghost, like death given human form. He'd stripped off his shirt, his entire torso a masterpiece of traditional Korean tattoos, guardian spirits, mythical beasts, symbols of protection and vengeance that seemed to move in the crimson light. He knew every shadow, every corner, every blind spot. And he was done playing defense. One by one, the The Viper's men disappeared into the darkness. By the time the Viper realized what was happening, he was alone in the main hall, surrounded by bodies, and Kang Deving was standing 10 feet away, shirtless, suit pants soaked with blood, his tattooed torso gleaming with sweat and violence, a gun in each hand. "You came into my home," Deving said quietly, the dragon on his chest seeming to breathe with his words. "You threatened my family." The Viper raised his weapon. "You've gone soft, Kang. That old woman made you weak." "No." Deving's smile was terrible. The phoenix on his shoulder seemed ready to take flight. "She reminded me what I'm fighting for. There's a difference." The gunshots echoed for miles. When the panic room door opened, Thandai and Naledi found Deving sitting on the stairs, covered in blood, none of it his. His tattoos were painted crimson, the ink barely visible beneath the gore. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Bodies littered the floor. Thandai walked over slowly, leaning on her cane, and sat down beside him. She didn't say anything about the carnage. She just took his bloody, tattooed hand in hers. "You kept your promise," she said softly. "You came back." Deving's shoulders shook. He leaned against her, this woman who'd saved him twice now, once from starvation, once from becoming something completely inhuman. "I'll always come back, Halmione," he whispered. "Always." Naledi sat down on his other side, taking his other hand, her fingers intertwining with the tattooed characters for family. And there they sat, a crime lord, a grandmother, and a maid, in the wreckage of a war, holding on to each other like the family they'd become. Outside, dawn was breaking over Seoul. The Ice King's enemies were dead. But Kang Deving, the tattooed boy who'd been saved by kindness, was finally, truly alive. The end. From a flooded care facility to a mansion under siege, Thandai's kindness 30 years ago saved a boy and created a legend. Would you risk everything for family the way they did? Drop a comment and let me know. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales. What should we explore next? You decide. I read and respond to all comments.